Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We bring you stories of faith, love, and devotion. Yeah, just kidding, please help us grow by hitting that like button. Now on to the story. Married and lonely. I just caught my wife cuddling with her guy friend. We had a couple of her friends over for a game night. There were drinks involved. I got tired around midnight and went to bed. The rest kept on playing and drinking. I woke up at 8 a.m. and noticed my wife wasn't in bed. I got out of the bedroom and saw one of the guys on our sofa, and our guest room was closed but with some music coming out. I snuck in there and there she was, in his arms, fully clothed though. They didn't even notice me right away, but when they did there wasn't any panic. She got up and pulled on my sleeve to follow her outside the room. We pretty quickly got to talking about our marriage problems, or singular problems rather. Our problem is that we haven't had sex since September and we haven't really talked about it until now. I find myself in a tough situation in life. On top of this, I'm an immigrant that doesn't speak the language well. I just started a new job as a boss of other people who applied for the same position but didn't get it, so I'm not feeling welcome there. I have no close friends here, just some buddies from my previous work. I'm starting to ask myself what the hell am I doing here, and I'm having trouble coming up with a good answer. I've never felt so sad and lonely in my life. I'd like to think for most people, catching their remorseless spouse in the arms of another person would be a deal breaker. Even with the lack of sex, to forego discussion and or therapy and begin emotionally cheating is such incredible disrespect. You deserve better, dude. Her friend isn't just a friend, she checked out a long time ago, even before September. It's time to go solo and find yourself happiness again. I'm sorry you're going through this. It's not pleasant. It won't help much, but many of us have been through episodes like this. The sadness and loneliness can run deep. But it's time to find out where you stand with your wife. If this happened to me, I'd want to know why the door was closed, why they didn't panic when they saw me. Did the guy say nothing to you? What did they talk about? Is she sexually attracted to him? Don't just focus on the lack of sex since September. That's not the singular problem. Is your wife using that as an excuse for her landing in the arms of another man in a closed room? As you say, you really haven't talked about it until that moment. I'd be upset my wife sought comfort from another man, rather than talking to me and trying to talk about our sex life. Intimacy is wildly important to a relationship, but the lack of it isn't a green light for her to end up seeking it from another man. I'd have difficulty trusting her in the future. Good luck to you. Update on Married and Lonely. Here's the post I made a few weeks back. What happened there was a huge red flag that I put in the red flag basket, and that basket was getting pretty heavy with all these flags. I started working on myself, the job started getting better, and I had a talk with the wife and we started working on our sex life. Although I always felt uneasy. Now she came home from work last night. Usually if she doesn't come straight home after work, then she's seeing friends and staying late with them, so she comes home at around 4 a.m. Always when she comes home early enough to not be shit-faced, she's pretty good company and responsible. She would suggest watching something, then when it is bedtime, turn off all lights, and we have an unbreakable habit of watching some boring YouTube videos on a laptop until we fall asleep. Now she came home before 1 o'clock, didn't wake me up to join her in bed. I fell asleep watching TV on the sofa. All lights turned on and no laptop in bed. I tried waking her up, but she was out cold but didn't smell like alcohol. I know now she had some, but I was surprised to not smell any. I started wondering how she got home. I opened her phone to see if she called a taxi, but I saw something that led me to snooping on her phone. Turns out she's been in regular contact with a guy I didn't know existed. He has sent her some dick videos and she has sent him nude selfies. They are talking to each other in Finnish, which I don't understand, so I had to spend some time copying and putting it to the translator. It was pretty obvious they had been hooking up. I managed to wake her up and confronted her with this, and now she admitted that she's been cheating on me. We got into talking about this and she tried to give reasons, some I can understand, but ultimately she was too afraid to hurt my feelings by telling me how she was feeling about lots of stuff, and she let it build up inside her, and that led to frustration and feeling trapped. But the harm is done, she can't take this back, and I just don't see myself trusting her again, especially after having suspicions and feeling like absolute shit for months and months. I've told her that I want a divorce and I'll be starting to plan my next steps tomorrow after I hopefully get some sleep. Talk to a lawyer. You can look back to when the dead bedroom started, and that is probably when she started cheating. Good luck, stay safe, stay strong. ETA Cheater's script, blame you, she feels trapped, she didn't want to hurt you. She didn't want to hurt his feelings by telling him, but had no problem cheating. I'm also sure that she had no problem communicating before. Things probably became bad when she started giving her attention to that guy instead of her husband. Even Op was in the same bad marriage in the same circumstances, but he didn't cheat. That's commitment. Check out r/surviving infidelity and r/divorce. I remember your first thread, and unfortunately your update isn't much of a surprise. Also get tested for STDs because you don't know exactly how far back the affair goes. Thanks, I'll check them out and get checked out. Just wanted to say I've been where you are. I am so sorry. Please don't let her gaslight you or make you feel like it was your fault or she didn't want to hurt you either. Terrible excuse for I couldn't be honest with you or myself. Know your worth. Be firm and stay kind, for your own sake, not hers. Therapy is your friend, just to better process and move forward. I'm so sorry this happened to you, Op. Try looking into joining some Finnish classes and starting your own life there. Join some groups to make friends, meet other internationals, etc., especially if you have better opportunities there. If you would rather just leave and go back home, that's chill too. I've been in LDRs and it never ends well to move for a partner. You need to experience what will make you happy in that place without her. She can feel whatever she wants, you are not responsible for her cheating, that was her decision. She could have told you she wanted a divorce or tried to work on the relationship instead of sleeping with someone else. I think her reasons are excuses. Lawyer up. I would say you should get pictures of the messages too if possible. Act fast, save evidence/screenshot and send it to yourself, get your finances, assets, and living situation in order, and get ready to upgrade your life, U/complex. Standard 4963. Just found out my 36 meters wife, 36F, has been cheating, needs support, I'm a mess. My pulse is racing non-stop, but I can't cry. Not yet anyways. My suspicions were true, I was right, I wasn't crazy or just a bad, paranoid husband with low self-esteem. I couldn't go on like this anymore and did what I wanted to do so many times before but never did out of respect. I snooped around on her phone. Found out they were swapping nudes and planning when and where to meet. This goes back months, almost a year. Her excuse? Apparently she's under so much pressure from me because I left my home country for this one just to be with her. So she feels obligated to keep me happy and entertained, and she couldn't take that anymore. I had told her I do want a kid but also wanted to open up my own bakery, and she felt that me wanting that was making her obligated to make sure that happens because of my sacrifice of moving to this strange country, Finland. The thing is, she never expressed those thoughts to me. I had no idea she felt this way, and I think that's her fault. I pride myself on being calm and understanding. I've never laid a finger on her or screamed at her, so why was she afraid of telling me? We just got a third cat and we have a house together and we just replaced our roof, been talking to banks and making commitments, we talked about our future business. So in her mind, the thought of separating is not even on the radar. At the same time she's sleeping with someone else. I'm baffled by that. My family loves her and my parents think she was sent to me by God and I'm so lucky blah blah. This just happened hours ago, so I'm still thinking a lot, but I don't see how I can trust her ever again. I can forgive her and move on, but the trust is absolutely ruined. And that's not the life I want to live, not being able to trust my own wife, not knowing where she is or when she's coming home again and again. I don't know what I'm expecting from this post, but I feel vulnerable and isolated now and just someone reaching out with kindness would help me a lot right now. I feel you there, brother. Just went through the same thing about 6 months ago. Terrible feeling. It is going to sting for a while, but it will calm down with time and with acceptance. Jim, good music, good family/friends support and some self-respect. You got this, king. She's possibly a covert narcissist, has everyone fooled into thinking she's the nicest person and a godsend, blah, blah, blah. You don't say how long you've been married, but remember some people simply do not have the emotional and intellectual maturity, much less the integrity to sustain a loving, authentic, long-term relationship. Also think of the 3 pillars to any successful relationship: love, trust and respect. A relationship must have all 3 to thrive. She doesn't respect you, the marriage or herself, frankly, and unfortunately, once the trust is gone it is next to impossible to get it back. This is one of the reasons most reconciliations ultimately fail. Consult with a lawyer to see how a divorce will look for you and go from there. If you think you need it, get some IC for yourself, not marriage counseling. I wish you all the best. The thing is, she never expressed those thoughts to me. I had no idea she felt this way and I think that's her fault. It's important to understand that cheating simply cannot be the fault of the one who was cheated on. Her reasons are just excuses that have nothing to do with her decision to cheat. When someone has a problem with the relationship, or their spouse, to remove it, they can either fix it or leave the relationship. Because you cannot cheat on someone you left, blaming the relationship for her cheating would translate to saying that she cheated to fix the problem in the relationship. Obviously, this is nonsense. If the action wasn't directed at the problem in the relationship, then the problem in the relationship couldn't have been the reason for the action. It wasn't a problem with the relationship that led her to cheat, but a problem within herself. A character flaw that led her to choose to cheat to satisfy her own desires, knowing full well it would damage the relationship and you. Story 2. Struggling with trust and boundary setting. My wife, 30F, and I, 30M, have been a rough few months. Lately I've been having anxiety and struggling with the line between trust and setting healthy boundaries and wanted to seek some advice. In short, my wife has become really close with a male co-worker, often going out binge drinking one-on-one for 5+ hours. She assures me that it's not like that and she's really disappointed that I would even think she would be unfaithful. I don't know where the line is between overreacting/trust issues and setting healthy boundaries. See below for longer context. My wife and I moved across the country 3 years ago for her work. Her office environment has become really stressful and toxic with managers that gaslight and undermine her team. She's become really close with a male teammate. Over the pandemic he and his girlfriend hung out with us a lot. They've showed us cool places around the city, camped with us for a couple weekends a few times. On one of these trips last year, my wife and her co-worker stayed up until 5 a.m. drinking and talking when the rest of us went to sleep. It gave me some anxiety to see that at the time, but I brushed it off. A few months ago, my wife and I decided we wanted to move back to be closer to family, and she found a job back home. Once this was a done deal, things started to change between her and her co-worker. They hung out much more frequently. She said she wanted to maximize the time she had here with friends, but didn't do that with her other friends and co-workers. Early November, the 3 of us get a couple drinks on a Sunday night. I decide to leave to go make dinner and get to bed by a decent time, but the 2 of them stay out. I'm a little peeved by this, but she wants to keep socializing. I wake up at 2 a.m. and find that she's still not home. She won't answer my texts or calls, so I start to drive to the few usual hangs to look for her. She eventually answers a call at 3 a.m. and drunkenly slurs that she's going to get an Uber home. I insist on picking her up, but she hangs up. Finally she gets home at 5 a.m. saying something bad happened, that her co-worker left and a couple guys at the bar were harassing her. She left, didn't know where she was, and called her co-worker who helped her get an Uber home. During a later discussion, she told me another detail that she initially omitted. She went back to his place to sober up before getting the Uber. During this conversation, she says she doesn't want to drink anymore. I ask what I can do to support her, if she needs me to check in and make sure she's okay. She's floored that I would even offer because it's her mistake. Later that week, she goes out with her co-worker after work, but after a few hours I get antsy and show up at the bar where they are. She's frustrated by this but says I can't be mad after I point out the support system I offered. 2 weeks later, same story. We're all hanging out in a big group on a Sunday afternoon. After we get back home, she immediately turns around and goes back out the door saying her co-worker wants to get drinks. I feel weird about it but don't have the time to process it before she's gone. This time, she doesn't come home until the next morning. I tried calling numerous times throughout the night. She eventually answers a text asking if she's alive at 4 a.m. with yes. I'm alive, but doesn't answer any more calls or texts. At this point I've packed a bag ready to leave to go stay at a hotel and feared the worst, but she makes it home around 8 a.m. before I've left. She said she got too drunk and decided it would be best to stay the night on her co-worker's couch. I tell her I'm not okay with her sleeping in another man's home, that this severely damages my trust in her, and that I need her to communicate with me where she is and when she expects to be home in these situations. She's extremely apologetic about it, and says she doesn't want to drink again. She meets her co-worker a couple days later to tell him, allegedly, that she can't drink with him anymore, that she can't be responsible. A mere 1 week later, she goes out with the girls from work after work on a Monday. 11 p.m. comes and goes. I get worried, and find her at a different bar, alone with the co-worker. I make a scene and eventually get her to come home with me. She's furious that I won't trust her, says maybe marriage isn't for me, and that she can't be policed like this. I insisted on being updated on when she changes location when going out, if nothing else, for safety purposes, but she doesn't even see the point in that. The next morning, we make up. I try to understand her social needs and look inward at myself thinking maybe I just have trust and jealousy issues. A couple more times over the next month, I become okay with her drinking with her co-worker and she always makes it home by a decent time. On one occasion that I said I didn't feel comfortable about it, she obliged and stayed home. I can't shake feeling off about their whole relationship. Whenever I bring it up, my wife gets frustrated that I don't trust her. I get frustrated that she doesn't even remember prior conversations we had because she was too drunk. Next week, she's going back to that city to visit her friends and go to a bridal shower. I know she'll see her good male co-worker, and I should be okay with this. Should I insist that they don't meet alone? She has said that she gets along with him best when alone because he's more open and acts differently than when in groups. Should I insist that it not involve alcohol? That seems silly to me, but I don't know how to find the line between feeling overly jealous and setting healthy boundaries. I decided I want to see an individual therapist to help me deal with these feelings and anxieties. We've seen a couples therapist online which felt a bit generic. They gave us some good strategies on how to approach conflict and strengthen our relationship, but it never really gave me closure or understanding of the events up until now. The therapist didn't agree with my wife's behavior, but she dismissed him as being old-fashioned. It's never like that and he's always just a friend. Trust your gut. There is a reason you are feeling uncomfortable. There are thousands of infidelity stories on here that start out just like this. She's a 30-year-old wife. She shouldn't be hanging out in bars with other men one-on-one. That is just asking for trouble. I know I will get downvoted for that, but that's how I feel. I keep getting this as advice. But what do I do? Keep rehashing the same tired argument? Snoop for proof? I feel a nicky ethical dilemma about this one. Are you being a doormat to be the good guy? Ask yourself this: if the roles were reversed, specifically, that you slept a few nights around a co-worker's, with some rather dubious excuses, would she keep you around? You feel icky about snooping but not about your wife cheating? I do think snooping is wrong, but it's justified for this. Or just tell her to show you her communication with him. If she has nothing to hide, then it should be no problem. If they only talk through Snapchat, that is a huge red flag. You're going to have to get angry. Stop the chats and allow the gaslighting. Pack a bag and tell her to contact you when she's ready to tell you the truth. Then block her for a few days. She needs to stew on this and be faced with real consequences. You're allowing this by never taking action. What you've described is at least an emotional affair. The fact she refuses to end being alone with another man for hours on end and almost always ends up back at his place is enough proof. She's going to continue to manipulate you until you refuse to allow it. That's a tough pill to swallow, but feels like actual valid action I can take. Thanks. I'm going to say that if you're going to take that advice, you have to be totally prepared to end it. I'm not saying you have to end it, but be prepared for that possibility. Thanks for that caveat, and for sharing your personal experience. You seem to acknowledge the complexities of the situation and that it's not as cut and dry as leave that bitch. Well, no, because it really is hard. I cried for 6 months before I recovered. Dude, this story is riddled with red flags all over the place. Basically everything she's doing with this guy is inappropriate for a married woman. I'm surprised you've hung in there as long as you have. If my wife did this, and just came home late once from a public place, we'd have a very serious chat about it never happening again. If it happened a second time, that would be the end of the marriage. If she ever stayed the night away from home and another guy was involved even remotely, there wouldn't be a second chance on that, automatic divorce. At this point, if I were in your shoes, I would assume she's been regularly going to bed with this guy for quite some time. She is not cut out to be a wife. She sounds like an alcoholic who is made for the streets. Kick her out. Divorce this trashy woman and move on. And when you start dating again, set boundaries early when exclusivity is established. Do not ever tolerate your woman going out alone with other men. This is what it leads to. Also, she is not 21. I don't need to go out late at night drinking with other women and not coming home. It's ridiculous. She needs to be coming home to you ASAP as the default, always. Any deviation from that is a big red flag unless you want to have that sort of semi-open relationship where you both flirt with other people and sometimes things happen. You would establish that ahead of time. I wouldn't put up with that disrespect for even one more day. I'm interested in women's perspective on this. In your book, this behavior is totally not cool? In no circumstance would you feel okay getting drinks late alone with another man outside a relationship? One of my closest friends is a guy and we did have relations before my husband and I got together. My husband knows this and they are friends also. We do go out and get drinks from time to time, during the day. My husband will meet us there after work and we'll eat and I will go home with my husband. There is no staying out into the night, staying over at his house, not answering my phone. All of that is incredibly disrespectful and unacceptable. And since our past situation is different, if my husband told me he was uncomfortable with me going without him, I wouldn't. I wouldn't even want to though, because at the end of the day, I want to go to bed with my partner, not at my friend's house. Also, I wouldn't ever be getting drinks with some random co-worker that I haven't known long of the opposite gender. Maybe that's old-fashioned, but I'm not out there looking for friendships with other men. I have plenty already that both me and my partner trust and respect. So, back when I was married there was something similar. At one point she just left and didn't come back the entire night. At another point she went to see a male friend she knew 7 years ago from high school for most of the night. Then 2 weeks later they get drunk and she sleeps on the couch. Her story seemed weird, so I asked more follow-up until she revealed she slept in his bed, with clothes on. After 3 weeks of me bringing it up a few more times, it's eventually revealed that they made out in their underwear. Eventually she texted me saying she was too guilty and they had sex. I'm not saying it's the same, but it sounds pretty similar to me. I'm not even the only person I know with a story like that. Hearing similar stories definitely reassures my gut feeling. It's just been over a month now and every time I bring it up just hasn't seemed to go anywhere. It took a year and a half from where the problems really started until it ended, and we had some better time periods there, but it did end. You just have to decide if it's worth the effort. Where you see it going. It's hard, but in my situation it would have been better to just cut it when I first said I would an entire year before we actually did. Fighting for the relationship made it so much harder. And it sucks because you might try to look back to when it was better, but what matters is what it is now. That was a few years ago. It took me a bit to want to date again, but I'm in a much better relationship now. Yes, there is a high probability that she is cheating. Very high. At the least she is disrespecting you horribly and gaslighting you horribly. If I had been in your shoes, she would have been seriously answerable the first time itself. Why would a married woman spend so much time when she has a husband? She is having a fling with him. Why don't you talk to his GF? Tell her what you think and feel. That will put things into retrospect. A scare probably for that coworker. Yes, she is cheating for sure. Time to file the papers. Or, swallow and rug sweep. She seems to be a terrible wife. How fitting. See my latest post in r/cheating_stories. Oh, I read it now. Please don't accept her no matter what. Not even if she swears to improve, because you have already seen the pattern. You can do much better than her and live a life of woes and regret. I, 30M, finally got truth and pried out confessions from my wife, 30F, of 5 years that she's been having an affair for months. Still a throwaway, but see the post history for context. I finally got some trickle truths last night from my wife. I set a clear boundary with her that she wasn't to drink alone with her friend back in the south when she went to visit for a bridal shower last weekend. We recently moved up north. She told me her story of what she did that weekend, purely innocent. I got the suggestion to contact the dude's girlfriend. I didn't want to at first, but boy am I glad I did. I asked if she ever felt off about these two. She says, yeah, we've talked about it, but he swears they're just good friends. She mentioned she wasn't happy that my wife slept at his place this past weekend. Whoa, what? Then I confronted my wife, who doubled down on the same lies. Then I showed her the receipts. She then changes her story to okay, I hung out with him but we didn't drink and you said that was okay. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd be upset. I'm like, you were just drinking in a group. You think it's okay to go home with this dude just because you didn't keep drinking? Then it was, I don't remember where we went, I was too drunk. After a lot of prying, pointing out lies and inconsistencies, it became we kissed, then we made out for an hour and then I have feelings for him I don't know what to do with, and then we kissed back in November, too. Who knows what she's still hiding, but that's enough for me. I honestly don't see a way out of this that includes us still being married. I left the house and checked into a hotel. I've been having so much anxiety since seeing all the red flags since November. Finally getting some validation after all the gaslighting is a huge relief. It feels 100% better to ask around and risk being wrong and looking like an asshole than to enable the gaslighting and tear apart your mental health while doing it. Alcoholism is a bitch and gets some therapy to deal with it, but that's not an excuse for cheating. Drop her like a hot potato. A moldy off-smelling groody potato. Adults don't have sleepovers to kiss. That is a bald-faced lie. Time to take your dignity back from that poor excuse of a woman and leave. We were only meeting up for some kisses. I remember reading somewhere else this exact thing, adults don't kiss, they duck. I say it all the time. Kids kiss, adults duck. Sad thing is this is more and more common. It is horribly sad, so many lives destroyed. So you saying he banged her till she was sore? What adult makes out for an hour? No kids, no brainer. She's been ducking him for months. Divorce her. You need support. A lawyer. Honestly, I felt bad for you reading your last post. I can't understand how you let her do any of the things she was doing and didn't throw her out. Don't be her doormat, man. She's not worth it. And you certainly didn't get the truth. We hope that by sharing these stories with interested folks like you, we can help people recognize the signs of a relationship in trouble, and avoid so many of these heartbreaking situations yourselves. Have a good day or night, wherever you are.